Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real head-scratcher. It's a paradox that sits at the crossroads of culture, global trade, and economics, and it all comes down to a single, very important animal.
So let's just get right to it. This is the central puzzle, right? On one hand, you have India, a nation where cows are sacred and their slaughter is banned in most of the country. But on the other hand, India is an absolute giant in the global beef market. It just doesn't seem to add up. But as you're about to see, the real story is, well, it's way more complex. And honestly, pretty surprising.
All right, here's how we're going to break this all down to solve the puzzle. We'll look at the paradox itself, then the official export story, the hidden link to the dairy world, and a crucial definition that changes everything. Then we'll touch on the darker side of things before tying it all together.
So, first up, the paradox itself. And look, this isn't just a simple story of hypocrisy. It's this tangled web of culture, hard economics, and, believe it or not, the very meaning of a single word.
Okay, so let's start with the official story. What does the industry itself tell the world? It's a story of a huge, modern, and really regulated business.
Check out this number, $4.5 billion. That's the value of India's animal product exports just last year. It is a massive economic engine. And the huge chunk of that, we're talking over $3.7 billion, comes from one product, buffalo meat.
And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out. India isn't just in the game, it is dominating it. We're talking almost 43% of the entire global market for buffalo meat. That's more than double its closest competitor, Brazil. It's an incredible lead.
So who's buying all this meat? Well, the demand is huge, especially across Asia. But take a look at this table. See that top entry? Vietnam. They account for more than half of all exports. Now, what's really fascinating here is that a lot of analysts believe Vietnam is basically a massive backdoor to get the meat into China.
And you might be thinking, this is all happening under the table? But no way. This is a seriously regulated industry. I mean, from the moment a plant gets registered by the government, through vet inspections before and after slaughter, all the way to halal certification, which is mandatory for 100% of exports, and a final pre-shipment inspection. It's a tight ship.
And the companies in this space, like the Alana Group, which is one of the biggest exporters on the planet, they lean into this heavily. You see their slogan right here. It translates to unmatched quality, innovation, and high-class customer service. They're selling a story of modern industrial success.
But all that success, it just raises a huge question, right? How is this all possible? How can they be so big and so competitive? Well, to figure that out, we actually have to look at a completely different industry.
You see, the real key to India's cheap meat exports, it doesn't start in a slaughterhouse, it starts on a dairy farm. The secret is that these animals, they aren't even being raised for meat in the first place.
Let's just walk through the life cycle of a dairy animal in India. For the first several years, its value is all about milk production. But then, you hit year 8, maybe year 10, and that milk yield starts to drop off. Now, for a small farmer, that animal goes from being an asset to, well, a liability. It costs more to feed it than the income it brings.
And here's the absolute kicker. This quote nails it. Since buffalo meat in India is a byproduct of dairy, it's very cheap. Think about that. The dairy industry basically foots the bill for raising the animal for years, so when it's sold for meat, that's almost all profit. That's the magic trick. That's why Indian meat can be up to 3 times cheaper than its global competitors.
Okay, so if it's coming from the dairy industry, how can it be called beef? And more importantly, how does this whole thing not run afoul of the cultural and legal protections for cows? This is where a single word, a simple definition, changes absolutely everything.
And that word is Carabeef. See, the beef that India exports is almost entirely from the domestic water buffalo. Now, in international trade, they might get lumped together as beef, but within India, the distinction between a cow and a water buffalo is absolutely fundamental.
And this slide shows you exactly why that distinction is everything. Cows, they're sacred to many Hindus, protected by law, and their slaughter is banned in most states. Buffalo, on the other hand, are not sacred. Their slaughter is legal and regulated. They are the engine of India's beef export. And if you had any doubt, just look at the numbers. This chart of export values says it all. Buffalo meat, Carabeef, makes up over 82% of all animal product exports by value. This entire market is built, legally, on the back of the water buffalo. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. The very laws designed to protect one animal, the cow, have had some serious unintended consequences. They've created this whole other parallel economy,
one that's dangerous and operates in the shadows.
So think about it. It's illegal to slaughter a cow in India, but right next door, in Bangladesh, it's totally legal. What does that create? A massive smuggling operation. The numbers are just staggering. Sources estimate that as many as 20 million cattle are smuggled across that border every single year.
And the smugglers, they've got a whole playbook. They use fake papers, they'll dye cows black to make them look like buffaloes. They use unguarded border crossings in the dead of night. Sometimes they just steal the cattle right off the streets. A cow in India is one price, but the second it crosses into Bangladesh, its value can literally double overnight.
And then there's the other side of this problem, a huge population of stray cattle. When a cow gets old, stops producing milk, and a poor farmer can't legally sell it for slaughter, what choice do they have? Often, they're just abandoned. This leads to an estimated 5 million stray cattle wandering India's roads and railways. It's a huge problem. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, you realize it's not one simple story. It's two systems running side by side. One is this massive, legal, regulated export industry. The other is a dark, illegal, underground smuggling trade. And both of them spring from the very same economic reality.
And this is so important to grasp. This is an economic system first and foremost. It's not a religious one. There's a common myth that this whole trade is run by a single religious community. But the sources are clear. From business reports to politicians, the major export businesses are owned by people of all faiths, including Hindus and Jains. It's just business.
Which brings us right back to where we started, but with a much clearer and maybe more challenging perspective. The legal buffalo meat industry isn't separate from the dairy industry. It's an economic extension of it. The data paints a stark picture. For every 200 liters of milk India produces, about 1 kilogram of meat gets exported. They are two sides of the same coin. And that leaves us with a really tough question. In a system like this, can you even have one without the other? It really makes you think about the hidden costs behind the things we consume.